Anyone that's in the crypto space knows there is a lot of volatility going on, and it can be rather harrowing. You're going, what am I going to do with this? Well, I had a chance to talk with a man named Peter Vessenes, and he is a person that has been around since 2010, working with it, has done a lot, seen a lot of people, knows what's going on. As a matter of fact, taking notes here on what he talked about, talks about an inflection point where we are right now, and some good questions to ask. Day trading advice, gave you some good on that also. The religious ideas in Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Core, he addresses that as well and gives some good words of advice, and also the future predictions, where we're going. You'll want to join me for this wonderful interview with a wonderful guy as we have some fun and we share ideas with you on what's going on with cryptocurrency today. And other areas for ICOs, the initial coin offerings, and many other areas. And plus, we're seeing a lot of change. And so, got a real treat for you today. And kind of my guest today is someone who's been with Bitcoin since way back in the ancient days of 2010, when it got started in 2009, and then it started really picking up speed there. And he's a person that's a co-founder of the Bitcoin Foundation and involved in a lot of other ventures right now. And he joins us now from up there in the Seattle area. His name is Peter Vessenes. Peter, thanks for being with us today.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
You have done a lot in the Bitcoin space and with Bitcoin Foundation, with others, and now you're working on some other ventures we want to get into in that a little bit later. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about your background and what you see happening now versus back in the ancient year of 2010.
in the prehistory of Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I don't tend to give a lot of bios, but I started in 2010. I was one of the first entrepreneurs in the space. I ran the first venture-backed Bitcoin company. I gave Tim Draper his first Bitcoin. I gave Esther Dyson her first Bitcoin.
Yeah, two very prominent people.
And then did the Bitcoin Foundation in 2012, and along with Gavin Andreessen and a group of others. And, I ran one of the first silicon chip mining companies, Bitcoin mining companies that deployed at scale. And about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago now, I thought, gosh, this smart contract ICO thing's really interesting. And thought I might be good to dust off the spurs and started New Alchemy, which is the first company to really go at providing ICO services in the industry. So New Alchemy's been around year and a half now. I incorporated about a year and a half ago and has been involved in something like $4 or $5 billion of tokenizations one way or the other. So, and they do, we do their advisory, security, smart contract writing, strategy work, all of the kind of stuff around getting your tokenization done. So that's that. I'm having probably more fun than I've ever had. I think, we'll talk about it, but I think there's some good reasons to think the market has hit an inflection point, like a positive one. And it's a little bit like we might be at Web 2.0 now, kind of, we did Web 1.0, we had our bust for a few years, and we may be back at some really interesting stuff in the next couple of years. So
yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think we're seeing that inflection point and some real changes that are taking place. Oh, and by the way, another thing that those of you watching this want to know, Peter described himself as a person who talks with his hands a lot, as I do. So, Peter, you and I, two hand talk, we can go back and forth that way a lot. We're seeing a lot of work. Matter of fact, this much growth, you notice that's off the screen, this much growth way out there with it. And sometimes it's, I want to ask you about Deluge because I'm excited about that. But before we get into it, right now we're seeing a lot of volatility. I mean, that's an understatement. It's really crazy, and sometimes we get really scared because it's going down. Other times excited because it's going up. Help us, oh wise one, who has been in the industry for a while. Help us to make some sense of this. How do we handle all the volatility that's out there today?
Oh, man. I think the first thing is probably don't day trade would be my advice. Start there. It's interesting. I think that, giving investment advice is always, a risky thing. So let me say this. I think to me right now, betting on some broad market trends is probably a good move with money you can afford to lose, and like, I think if I had a couple of $1,000s to put into crypto right now, I would probably look at the top 10 just blockchains, the ones that look like they're going to do some, like, that really have something interesting to offer over the next 4 or 5 years. I'd probably spread my bets out on them and sit tight, maybe rebalance if a new one comes along with something to offer. I think, like, if you think about those macro trends, a question I ask myself when I would say somebody who wants to get into this industry should ask themselves is, like, what percent of the total innovation that's going to be done in blockchain has been done? Like, what percent? And my answer is like less than 5%. A very small amount of where this will go has been done. And so if that's true, like, you kind of want to just, I would say it's smartest to keep an open mind, like, not get religious about one chain or one tech over another, kind of, be engaged, reading, think of this as learning, and it's not bad to kind of place a few small bets in different places and see what happens. I mean, I can say, I've lived on digital currency investments in years when it went down 80%. It's super painful. I don't recommend it.
Ouch.
Yeah,
ouch.
it hurts. It hurts a lot.
Yeah, you look at CoinMarketCap and go, no, say it isn't so.
Yeah, and we had whatever, I think it was Bitcoin charts, whatever, it goes back. But on the other hand, I think, I've lived through maybe something like 8 major Bitcoin busts, like going from $8 down to 50 cents was painful. Going from $16 to $2 for Bitcoin was painful. There's, you can kind of, like, the industry itself is volatile. A lot of the coins are volatile. So, I'm always kind of on the lookout too for assets in a space that are not as heavily correlated with, the main ones, Bitcoin, Ethereum. I think it's, I've been sort of a little disappointed to see Bitcoin and Ethereum tracking so closely these days, just percentage wise as they're moving. I think that's probably not, that's just market sentiment. That's probably doesn't have a lot to say about their future prospects. But so I don't know. We could talk trading all day, but I think it's a fun time to be here. Don't put any money in that you couldn't afford to have Bitcoin go to $3,000 and Ethereum go to $200, because that day could be here in a few weeks, and enjoy the ride.
Exactly. We don't know what's going to happen. I have to agree with you. I'm here in Orlando, Florida. We have Disney World, and I often say, look at it as Disney World money. You go to Disney World with a family, you have a good time. You're going to spend some money there, but it's money that you could be able to lose. You're not going to look back and go, oh no, we mortgaged the house for that. Do not mortgage the house for Bitcoin. We say that right now. No financial advice here, but we're just saying, watch out for that. But I want to find out from you, Peter, something that you're doing right now. I've been reading a little bit about it. I want you to tell us a little bit more about the Deluge Network that you've got. It looks good that you're getting people an option to start working with this to be able to buy some used Bitcoin without having to go through some of the exchange. Now, of course, the challenge with that is going to be you're going to have to get by without those really, really high fees and those really, really slow transactions. So that you would normally get on the exchange. I'm being facetious here. So you've got a way to make it work a lot better. Tell us a little bit about Deluge and the advantages you see with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Deluge came about, it's actually came about because a lot of our ICO customers want to accept Bitcoin for their tokenizations. And as soon as they do that, they found they have a lot of problems. So right now, on the one hand, as much written about in the news, Bitcoin's slow, fees are really high, and there have been a number of pieces just this last few weeks, like Stripe won't take Bitcoin anymore because transactions won't process, and certainly it's not good for these, like, small time payments that historically part of the Bitcoin community wanted Bitcoin to be used for. So we kind of have this story where on the one hand, Bitcoiners have become very wealthy. There's a lot of value there. And those who hold it do want to participate in new innovations in the blockchain space frequently. But getting from here to there is hard. So either the ICOs have to get an escrow agent, a custodian in place. They've got to do custom work. It's not the kind of thing you could allow a lot of people a lot of Bitcoiners to engage in. And so they tend to put the prices higher and the requirements higher. And on top of that, so that's just like a microcosm as Bitcoin itself kind of moves from this thing that could have been a successful payment asset into something that's much more like sort of a slow moving store of wealth. There's this gap. At the same time, Ethereum and Ethereum related networks have these smart contracts, which are just super fantastic. I mean, you can write software that deals with money right on the blockchain, totally decentralized. We're seeing like a tiny fraction of what's going to be done with that right now in the market. So we wanted to put those together. So Deluge is basically that. It's the value of Bitcoin, power and speed of Ethereum. And the way that works is the Bitcoin's escrowed in one place and it sits on the Bitcoin blockchain. It's held there. And then on the other side, what are called Deluge BTC, DBTC are issued. And those are tokens, just like any other Ethereum ERC20 token. The DBTC can trade and transfer and be used in smart contracts and be used just kind of as a money on the Ethereum blockchain, store of value, all these different things, but really quickly, like I don't know what the average Bitcoin transaction processing time is now, but it's in the hours. Ethereum, it's
or even longer. Sometimes I think it's millennia. It takes.
Yeah. Well, it's true. You can get booted out for whatever reason and then like die. Like the mempool's like, you're too old. We're not taking you anymore. So
yeah, exactly.
Ethereum is, in the seconds, 15 to 30 seconds maybe. So we have this, massive speed up, but you can always take your Deluge BTC and kind of claim Bitcoin back on the Bitcoin network. And so what we believe will happen is that the Deluge BTC will be worth, 1-to-1 what the BTC are worth. So they'll track, because if they're out of whack some way, people will go sell them or buy them or make more of them using the Bitcoin side to arbitrage out the price differences. So that's DBTC, and partly because of my history, I started out very religious about Bitcoin. The Bitcoin Foundation put money into. Pardon me.
That's the dog that you have there as we operate.
That is my dog.
Century style. Yeah, that's good.
Protecting the house.
What's your dog's name?
His name is Hobbs. And
tell Hobbs that we all said hello.
He's a sweetie. Let me pause 1 second. One of the things we think a lot about at New Alchemy, and that I think a lot about, is this question of religiousness. If you look at Bitcoin, there's like the Reddit Bitcoin forum, and then there's the Reddit BTC forum, and these two groups hate each other. They literally, like, there's different stories on the top of them. There's just one group loves Roger Ver, one group hates Roger Ver. They have all this kind of stuff that really, to me, is sort of like, reminds me of like Protestant,
Yep. Or worse.
yeah, exactly. So,
I don't know, have they gone to burning of the stake yet? I don't think we're up to that, or down to that level.
We joke, but these groups do hire like Russian troll armies to go tar people's reputations online. And actually, I think, it's to be really serious. Like, I would not be surprised to see, acts of violence at some point. Like, the stakes are very, very high. They're in the tens of billions of dollars. In a way, it's sort of like amateur hour how these guys fight each other right now. But it comes from this emotional, religious place, is my perspective. So we're not like that. I think I've kind of been religious. I've been religious in the past at the Bitcoin Foundation, and have sort of moved past that. So with Deluge, one of the things we're doing is we're going to support Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Gold. Monero is possible. We're still kind of figuring out how that could be done in a decentralized way.
Good. I'm going to interrupt you there for just a moment, and thank you for that. I think that's really a positive step, and thank you for doing that for the benefit of the community. Let's let the market decide and support all of them.
Totally. And yeah, so like, even, I often come back and say, like, look, like, how much of all the blockchain innovation that's going to happen has already happened? Like, unless your number's like 75%, then we shouldn't be locking things down. We should be experimenting right now and making it easy for people to experiment and see what's new. And my number about how much of the total innovation that will ever be done in this space has been done so far is like less than 5%, maybe 0 or 1%. So there's like it just hurts the cause to spend too much time complaining about like how big a block should be, or like how fast transactions should be. All these things are really like just distractions in my opinion.
And in a way, aren't we trying, we're doing a good market test right now. We say, okay, you've got Bitcoin Cash, you've got Bitcoin Core, and okay, we'll try it with a fixed block. Well, only 1 meg versus we got 8 now, we might go higher. It seems to me like that's a good way to test it. You just, in the real world, let the market decide. What do you think?
Yeah, at some level that's true. I think you have to also consider the social aspects. I mean, like, who has the right to call their thing Bitcoin is like this undercurrent. And I think that's like why you have a lot of politics. So, there's sort of like a group has won on the idea that like, whatever is the thing we all imagine Satoshi most wanted and blessed is the thing that should be called Bitcoin. And, that's a win for kind of quote conservatives in the Bitcoin space who don't want change. Why should it be that way? Why not be like, no, the thing with the best features should be called Bitcoin and the old ones should get old, So those are like social things that really matter, because, and they matter like, even down to like now legislation or what are the, like futures, Bitcoin futures, like which chain are they targeting? So I think we're going to actually talk a lot about this question this year in general, because like the financial markets, my
you have some problems there with your device there bouncing up.
Well, that's life right there. So the financial markets that are going after this like have never experienced something like this. Where what if we have 20 or 30 forks this year? Like, are they going to choose by mining power? What, like, are they going to have like now 80 different options markets running? I mean, so I think like that'll be
proof of stake, proof of work. What are we going to go with here?
That as well. So yeah, all that stuff. I don't think traditional finance industry folks are ready for kind of pace of change and size of change.
Yeah, let alone politicians. They say, this is the currency, et cetera. To have literally 1,300 or so different currencies out there, it's quite disconcerting for them.
And we see 10 to 100x in the next 18 months in terms of issuance. So, we used to call shit coins, like just random respins of the Bitcoin technology. And of course there's all that, but there's also just going to be a lot of innovation on this token side. So totally new de novo asset classes and existing asset classes getting kind of a token layer put on top of them. So it'll be really fun.
Yeah, I like your insights on that. Well, now one that you're working with that's going to be with Deluge Network will be Metronome. Tell us a little bit about that, what's coming, what kind of opportunities you see there.
Yeah, so Metronome is really cool. I mean, it's trying to abstract out. So it's a joint project. Matt Rozak, Jeff Garzik, and myself, our two companies, Block and New Alchemy. And the design goal for Metronome was, could we have like as a politics-free as possible digital currency?
Yes, what a concept!
Doesn't that sound great? People might not want that. They're going to be like, boring.
Boring can be good in money. That's all right.
The thesis is it will be appreciated. And Metronome does a few things that are unusual for a tokenization. So one thing is there's a descending price auction over 7 days when it's launched. And there's only going to be 10 million issued at the beginning. 8 million of them are sold off in this descending price auction. If you like the price, you pay. If you don't, you wait and hope there's some left later. And when it's done, then it will go to a daily descending price auction. And every day, 2 per minute come out, or 2,880 a day. So the idea is like tick-tock every minute is like it's called a tick in Metronome. And this steady thing will go on for about 50 years. And then that's the point at which 2880 is not enough to maintain 2% annual inflation. And after that, it'll inflate at 2% per year. So on the one hand, you have this very steady currency. And if you think, most of it's going to go in this first 7 days, if people want to bet on something like this, they're going to have to do it early, or they'll have to get to the market later. On the other hand, Metronome makes a couple promises that, they're inspired by Cory Doctorow's book, Walk Away, and also from my experience in blockchain. And Metronome makes this incredibly cool promise, which is, if you don't feel safe on the blockchain that Metronome's hosted on, you can switch your cart. You can move to a different blockchain, and you can actually, using crypto magic, move your Metronome tokens to a different blockchain, and the global supply of Metronome will be unchanged. Like, you won't break the global supply promises. So Ethereum bothers you, Vitalik scares you, you want to go to ETH Classic, no problem. You're gonna be able to like export your Metronome from Ethereum, import the money, ETH Classic. Quantum, Rootstock, you know, all these other sort of next gen stuff, next gen chains, you're going to literally be able to move your tokens over there, and then Metronome will be working over there as well. And so we think that's sort of like
future-proofed it.
I hope so. Yeah, exactly. And also kind of like give people a chance to vote and walk away without kind of needing to start a holy war. It's like, okay, look, you don't, like, Vitalik scares you, like, you know, and in fact, Vitalik does not scare me. He seems fantastic, but yeah, right. So, but you're a family office, you're an institutional investor. Like, how much do you bet on a person or a small team or a Blockstream or whatever? Choose your fear conversation, to be able to just step courteously, go somewhere else, and still kind of get all the same things and not nuke the whole ecosystem as you do that, I think is really cool. So that's Metronome, and yeah.
It sounds real good. Well, we wish you the very best on that. But before we let you go, I want you to reach over there and get your crystal ball. Make sure the batteries are working on it. Rub it really well. And we're going to look long-term, really long-term down the horizon where we're going, say, a full year from now. It would be long-term. And what kind of things do you expect we should have? And even more importantly, what advice would you give to the person that's watching this now to prepare for that long-term 1 year within the cryptocurrency, blockchain, Bitcoin space?
So I have a couple general thoughts, maybe warnings, maybe you might find them exciting, might find them scary. So sometime in the next 2 years, there will be a massive hockey stick on this current set of blockchain tech that's being worked out. And by that, I mean like the tokenization layer, essentially. So what we'll see, we're going to see a lot of fundamental infrastructure work in the next few years, which is why earlier I was saying, you know, spreading your bets out to these different blockchains, interesting ideas is probably a good idea. We already probably have enough infrastructure to support significantly more on the tokenization side, but people will be improving that infrastructure. So I think we're going to see not just good entrepreneurs, but like very wealthy industrialists come out with some vision for how they're going to use this technology. You know, so again, you know, they're like, if you think like, who's the best entrepreneur in Bitcoin space? You know, I would say maybe Eric Voorhees, you know, someone like this who's just early, consistent, good with users, good with customers, good with partnerships.
Good guy.
You know, absolutely. Eric's fantastic.
Yep.
You know, Eric's projects are going to be competing against stuff launched by like SAP.
Ooh, that's saying a lot.
And yeah, so I think we're going to see that kind of market entrant sometime in the next year to 2 years, and you know, like a Silk Road, tokenized Silk Road 3 assassination market might put that off for 2 years while the market sort of chokes down bad press or something. But like, you know, so we may have some hiccups along the way, but sometime in that time frame, we're going to see some, like, you know, large scale money, large scale operational ability going at the space. So that's one thing. I think, you know, we think most assets will get tokenized at some level. So I think you could expect that to be in flight somehow over the next 12 to 18 months. I think we'll probably see a bunch of new regulatory work, even just on style. Like right now, like you know, this is maybe too granular for your audience, or for you guys, but maybe not. Like in the US, like a venture fund is differently regulated than a hedge fund. Now, what do venture guys do if they want to invest just in token companies? How does that change their business? How does that change liquidity profiles? Like, there's a lot of kind of shakeup that's going to happen on the institutional money side. And I think all these things will shake out at some point into like, oh my God, the world's very different. and it may be smooth. It probably won't be, but at some point it'll be really fast.
Yep, I think we're seeing faster all the time. Well, if someone says, hey, I like this Peter guy, he's got some good ideas, what's a good way where they can find out more about what you're doing, say New Alchemy and other areas, and how would they get in touch with you?
The best thing to do, you can email me and the team at hello@newalchemy.io. We're always happy to talk to people. And that's a good way. And you can probably hit us up on Twitter at New Alchemy and so on. So yeah, we're out there.
Newalchemy.io, that is it. Well, Peter, thank you so much for joining us. We greatly appreciate what you're doing and for having you here with us today.
Terry, it was great talking. Thanks so much.
Yes, indeed. And for those of you that are watching this, think about what you've just heard. This man is someone who is well respected in the community. He has done a lot with Bitcoin Foundation and many, many other things as well. Look at what's available out there. Don't get all excited when we see the volatility. It can get really nerve-wracking at times. HODL is sometimes a good thing to do. HODL, you hold on for dear life and act wisely. Check out what Peter and his team are doing at New Alchemy and look at what they're doing with the Deluge Network. I'm excited about that. Just as I'm seeing it for a first time, I want to look into it more myself. Thank you for joining me. I'm Terry Brock with terrybrock.com and for Business Journals. Thank you for being here today.